Let's get ready to rumble!
Alrighty, what is going on? What is going on? What's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, man? What's up? What's up, man? Last week we had some unexpected technical difficulties.
Yeah,
Somebody hit a telephone line and knocked out my internet right
Okay.
before the show.
All right. Well, we good now. So yeah,
Yeah, we good now.
we good now. So man, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, man. There's a lot of stuff going on. Ukraine, Russia, Republican senators talking about we shouldn't help Ukraine. What's going on with that, man? What's up with that?
Man, look.
Hey, before we get into
I look.
into the meat of what we're going to talk about voting rights, we got to talk about some of the stuff that's going on because it's been about 3 weeks and there's a lot of stuff that's going on. Go ahead, man.
Man, I don't know where to start, man. Brian Flores, the NFL, uh, the, uh, the potential Supreme Court pick.
Yeah. They don't
I
know
mean,
who it
all
is.
those things,
Look,
man.
they don't know who it is, and she already unqualified. I mean, that's crazy.
I mean, look, man. Hey, we have to dig into that, man.
Yeah.
I did a post about that, man. I think the senator from the great state of Mississippi. Mississippi. If it wasn't for last place, Mississippi, would be, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But he called her an affirmative action pick. They're already questioning her credentials. We don't know who it is yet.
We don't even know who it is.
Yeah, but the point I made is that when you look at the 200 something history of the Supreme Court, I think there have been my math may be hazy. Please fact check me if you please, people. But I think there's been like 115 justices,
Mm-hmm.
and out of the 115, not one African American woman. Not saying that there's one not qualified. One African American woman. I think there have been two people of color. Well, two African Americans, excuse me. Southern minority person of color, but Thurgood Marshall and Clarence Thomas.
Yeah.
But before them, all men. I think Franklin Roosevelt, he had a Supreme Court pick where he didn't finish law school. You see what I'm saying? So the point is, I don't know the issue with her being African American. It baffles me when you look at the history of the court, because when everybody before Thurgood Marshall, even afterwards, when the president mentioned they were going to do a pick, it was understood without saying that was not going to be African American or a person of color.
Well, this is what I have to say. What qualifies someone to be on the Supreme Court?
I don't know.
If anybody's out there listening and I want to know what qualifies someone to be on the Supreme Court.
Because if you look at the history of the court, there have been people up there who would not, like Earl Warren, the Warren Court. I think he was a governor out of California. Earl Warren. He was appointed by Dwight David Eisenhower. So yeah. What are the qualifications? Well, obviously, for a long time, the qualifications was white male. If you want to dispute those facts, just look at the data.
Yeah. And also there was another thing that I read the other day where actually it was the senator out of Louisiana. I can't think of his name right now.
Talking about Kennedy?
Yes, Robert. Yeah, Kennedy.
John Kennedy. Yeah.
Is it John Kennedy? What's his name?
I think that's his name.
But anyway,
yeah.
he said that he wants someone. He hoped that Biden picks, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said that he hopes that President Biden picks someone that can read a law book instead of a J. Crew book. The J. Crew. I don't know what is J. Crew. I don't even know what that is.
I think J. Crew. Isn't that like some kind of clothing line or something like that,
Man, I
man?
don't
A
know.
clothing line.
I don't
Yeah,
know. I've never J Crew. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah. Well, here's the thing. I, I remember when I was I think I was a freshman or sophomore in college, and I turned a paper in, and it wasn't my best work. I kind of rushed it at the end. I didn't really do it like I
Yeah.
supposed to,
Yeah.
and I never forget what the professor told me. Um, no, she said, Mr. Smith, Dr. Nawasa, she says, Mr. Smith, mediocrity is a luxury you don't have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And basically, that she was saying that as African Americans, as an African American, you're going to be judged by a higher standard. It's just the way it is. And so, to your point, when you ask about when he talked about J. Crew and all that stuff, the margin for error for an African American in any, especially when it comes to Supreme Court, all that stuff like that, the bar is so high as compared to other people who've been on the court. You know what I'm saying?
Well, when you look at the way the court is currently made up, there are some things that the majority of the justices they have in common.
Yeah.
They either went to Harvard Law
Uh-huh.
School, or Yale Law School. Okay,
Hmm.
um, and so, but
Except
when
for
you look
Conor
at,
Barrett.
yes, um,
Okay.
so, but you said something. I want to go back to that about one of the senators saying that she's going to be we don't know who it is, but we automatically know that she's going to be affirmative action hire. Okay, so we gotta explore that for a minute. Okay, I'm not going to get into a tangent and talk about affirmative action. I'm not even going to do that. But
Okay.
and and you can fact check it if you want to, but white women have
Hmm.
been the beneficiary of affirmative action and at higher levels than what it was meant than who it was originally meant for. Okay, so you can make the argument um, that Sandra Day O'Connor was a if you want to go that
Hmm.
route, you can make the argument that
Yeah.
she was the first um, you know, affirmative action hire. If you want to use that logic, okay.
See, here's the problem with affirmative action. Now, I'm not saying it's a problem with it. The biggest issue with affirmative action is people's ignorance of it. That's the
Correct.
biggest issue. Because, first of all, the first assumption is that affirmative action is just for African Americans,
Correct.
right? No, that's not the case. Second assumption, uh, the narrative that's been pushed by people is that affirmative action, they lowered the standards
Correct.
to get these minorities in, so they're not as good as.
Yeah.
When in reality, the ones that are chosen are the cream of the crop, or better than their. Look, let me. I know you want to go on a tangent, but I got to bring this example up
No, go ahead. Go
quickly.
ahead.
Quickly. The the last girl, I forgot her name, out of Texas that tried to sue Texas um, about Supreme Court. Went to Supreme Court and she lost. Right?
I think are you talking about the
She's
one out of California?
no. This was a few years back out of
Okay.
the University of Texas. A few years back.
Oh yeah, the University of
Uh,
Texas. Yeah. Oh, I know who you're talking about. I
yeah,
know who you're talking about.
yeah. So you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Uh, it came out that 50 or something percent of the people that were chosen over her had higher test scores.
Correct. Yes.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So she wouldn't have gotten. She was mediocre at best,
Yeah.
right? So, but it goes to the point is that affirmative action, the misunderstanding is just for African Americans, and that lowers the standards, and that's just totally false. It's not the truth. I mean, if you're going to take away affirmative action and set asides or considerations, take away the legacy. If my daddy donated $1 million to the school, right?
Yeah.
Take away lower the standards for athletes that get into Duke and Carolina that can barely read, right?
Well,
That's truly lowered the
then you also
standard.
have to talk about legacy admissions.
Yeah, legacy, yeah. Because look, because I tell you what, I think when Morgan's at Carolina, I think on the application, I think it's a question to ask: did your mother or father go to Chapel Hill? Right.
Yeah.
So that's a consideration. Morgan went to a school in a rural district. That's a consideration.
Yeah.
Um, and you are a veteran.
Yeah.
That is a consideration.
Yeah.
If your father was killed, so all of those things are just criteria that gives you extra points. So if you're going to take away the criteria that deals with race, take it all away.
Yeah.
But back to the Supreme Court is where we are. Back to the Supreme Court. That has been the ultimate affirmative action
No.
for white men. So first of all, because here's the thing.
I'm listening.
Look at the audacity. Look at the audacity. You're looking at the history of the court. You're looking at only 3 people of color out of 115. 3 people, 2 African Americans, and I think she's a Puerto Rican, right?
Yeah.
Or Hispanic, have you? 3 people of color. Everybody else on the court is white. Never been one African American woman. And you put her picture up there against the history of the entire court, and you still feel like somebody's taking something from you.
Correct.
I mean, that's why I always that saying, when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like you've been oppressed.
Well,
right?
It
you're
does.
used to getting 100%, and you don't get that 2 or 3%. You feel like, oh, the world's falling in. So yeah, they want to go off like that, but yeah.
But no. But then the other thing you have to realize is that when the late RBG Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when she passed away, the former President Trump, he promised that he was going to place a woman, he was going to pick a woman to go into the Supreme Court. I don't remember anyone said make sure it's the most qualified. Make sure that woman is the most qualified. I'm just saying I didn't hear that. Ronald Reagan did the same thing when he first nominated O'Connor. But like I said, present now, even the people who are speaking out against it, they praise for. And look, I'm not talking about, when I say people, I'm talking about the political class. Because the people in my circle and the people who I haven't really heard any comments, any negative comments. So really, I guess when I talk about people, I'm talking about the political class, the hypocritical Republicans. Well, look, everybody's hypocritical in politics, but I'm just saying, on this issue right here, some of the Republicans who are speaking out now, they had nothing but praise when President Trump said that he was going to pick a woman to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And so what I would want to know is, what is the difference? What is the difference? We don't even know who this woman is, and we already know she's not qualified, according to the political class.
Yeah. Look, the only difference between what Trump did and what Biden did is Biden said black woman. Trump said woman, but everybody knew it was going to be white. The only difference is Biden said the race. If you look at Trump's appellate court picks, of all those picks, 100 some picks on the appellate level, the whole 4 years of his office, not one African American did he choose. Yeah. In the appellate court, not one of all those picks he made. So clearly, it's understood even though it's understood, right? So Biden just made sure he was going to be understood as well.
Correct.
That yes, it's going to be a black woman.
Correct.
Right.
And
she.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Look, double dutch, get in. All right, I'm a freeze.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Hey, man, I just lost my train of thought. Go ahead. I just lost my train of thought.
Okay. No, the thing is that whoever she picks, or he picks, excuse me, she is going to have to be perfect. Unfortunately, perfect. Um, the standard that she's going to be held against is nothing going to be close to the scrutiny that people have gotten um, before per se. Um, I use the example of our of President Obama and Donald Trump, both people who were elected president in this country, right? I dare say if Barack Obama was on his third wife and had babies by three different women and spoke with a vulgarity or whatever as Trump, it's safe to say he wouldn't be a senator. He would have been nothing, right? So it goes to show you that just an example that unfortunately uh, African Americans are held to a higher standard. Uh, there are things, as my mom used to say, Junior, you stuff you can't do, Nathan, you can't do. You know, you can't make a sudden movement around the police. Those kind of things.
Yeah, but I guess the question is,
Yeah,
because the woman um, he's going to pick is going to be a black woman. Are we to assume that there hasn't been any black woman that's been qualified in the past? Have there been no?
Man, come on.
I'm just saying. So that's the thing. And when he picked Brett Kavanaugh, when he picked Neil Gorsuch, I didn't hear a word about qualifications. Are they going to be qualified? It only pertains to someone outside of the norm and what is understood to be the norm. But anyway, I don't have too much more to say about it, only because I want to know who the person is. Because right now it's like a theoretical conversation. Because we don't have a nominee yet.
Yeah, and another thing, and probably the reason why a lot of people in social media or whatever, or the talking heads or the whoever follows the whims or whatever these people say that are criticizing this unknown woman yet, is that they don't have there's no valid argument when you start putting the facts and numbers before them. When you start asking questions like this, it's not an argument they can really have to say they have a problem with this woman, other than the fact that it's the color of her skin.
But the bigger picture is what qualifies someone to be on the Supreme Court. So when you say qualifications, you know what I mean? It's like what and especially when people say that, and I do push back sometimes. What qualifies someone to be on the Supreme Court? So when you say make sure they have the right qualifications, what are you saying?
Because
you don't have to have all of
it. That right, because like I said, an appointee of Franklin Roosevelt dropped out of law school, right? So he didn't finish law school at all.
You could be on the Supreme Court and not and never had argued a trial. You could be on the Supreme Court and have never argued a case in front of a judge.
No, and you can be white on the Supreme Court and now have argued a case, because if an African American went for the case Supreme Court, they have to have the ones I know about. Thurgood Marshall, who argued the Brown case, and at least I think Clarence Thomas was a judge at some point. So, but to not have any of those qualifications at all, no legal background, and still be a point. I see what you're saying.
My point is there are no qualifications. That's my
there are no qualifications.
There are no qualifications. The only qualification is, and Tracy said that, nominated by the president, confirmed by the Senate.
Yeah, that's it. And for the first 100 so years up until the 40th president, up until Ronald Reagan, the only qualification it had to be was a white male.
Correct. And look, if you're out there listening and this and you feel a certain way about this, it is what it is. This is just the truth. And so what I want to know is, do we always get the best people? It's kind of like Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth played in a time where African Americans weren't allowed to play baseball. Did he play against the best? What would have happened if he played against the best people? He's considered one of the best.
Against Satchel Paige.
So that's what I'm saying. So there should be an asterisk beside all of those names if you really want to be real. So I'm just saying. Look, man.
In that case, if we throw an asterisk, we should throw an asterisk beside every president from 1877 to 1964.
Yeah.
Because African Americans couldn't even vote, and you know what I'm saying?
Well,
so it goes deep. Yeah.
I'm just saying that there are certain things that I'm willing. There are certain things that I'm willing to have good faith debates and conversations about. But one thing that I'm not going to entertain is for someone to have the audacity to come to me and say, as long as this person is qualified, I'm like, get the hell out my face with that.
Yeah, because what happens is, just like you say, what makes them qualified.
Correct.
And then when they start naming what they think qualifications are, because they're gonna say law degree, whatever. Well, this person checks all the boxes. So again,
correct.
It goes back to the elephant in the room.
Correct.
That melanin.
Correct.
That's the issue.
And like I say, if you really want to be, what I'm waiting to see is whether or not the person who he picks, I want to see how she measures up against the last person that was picked. Because if Amy Coney Barrett, she's an outlier because she didn't even go to Harvard or Yale Law School. I'm just. But if you want to look at everybody else, on the court. But anyway, man, I ain't gonna get my blood pressure high, man, because like I say, I've been reading those comments, and I'm just like, it's like, look, man, you got to protect your peace, man. I believe that you have to protect your peace. Yeah. And I'm just saying, when I saw the comment that Robert Kennedy made about, I hope the person can read a law book and not a J. Crew book, I'm just like, really? I mean, how disrespectful? How disrespectful can you be?
Yeah. Well, like I said, people are those little microaggressions, those little insular insults tied to race, tied to things about African Americans not being as intelligent, all these type of things, all these tropes that have always been out there, those wrong, negative tropes, untrue tropes that have been out there with African Americans as far as intelligence and ability and things of that nature.
Correct.
Every trope in dog whistle is going to come out.
Correct. So
the thing is, when you come out with a dog whistle and try to be slick with it, I'm going to respond with a bullhorn, because one thing I'm not going to do, and I'm not going to allow you to be comfortable in your ignorance, whether it's sincere or intentional. I'm here for all of it. So yes, and like I say, ask a silly question at your risk.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just not even going to engage. I mean, that's the thing, because, like I say, Anyway, enough of that. What else is happening in the news, man? Looks like Ukraine and Russia.
Man, well,
the NFL.
Man,
I don't know all the facts about that, so I'm gonna reserve judgment. I mean, because the thing is, I don't know. I think there are regular people, and then there are athletes, entertainers, and I don't know. I'm just gonna withhold judgment right now, because there is a lot of information coming out about Brian Flores. It looks like, I don't know, how does the owner pay you to lose games, man? I don't know.
Yeah, look, let me tell you something, man. Yeah, we know business well, man. Hey, listen, we know anybody, and I guess anybody out there that watch sports. We've seen teams. We suspected seen teams that take a game for the playoff spot, or for the first pick in the draft.
Yeah.
I mean, we've definitely seen that. Like I say, I think the overriding issue is that the NFL has always had a issue with minority representation. They had an issue as far as with the hiring of African American coaches, holding them to a high standard than their white counterparts. Now, Brian Flores, now look, the Miami Dolphins had not had a winning season in like 10 years.
Yeah.
In 3 years, he's had three winning seasons. on the right track. One of the most young. Everybody when they fired him, everybody in the whole league was like, "What in the world?" Nobody. So it made no logical sense.
Yeah.
And so when you look at one African American coach in a league of 30 some teams, and on top of that, with 70% of the league is African American, it goes to show you. But look at the owners. Every owner, except for the guy in Jacksonville, who's a Pakistani American, is white.
Yeah.
So it doesn't defy logic at all that you assume that these men are going to choose people to run their franchises, um, you know, that look like them. Well, that's why it appears because the proof is in the pudding. So I don't know, man. It's one of those things. One thing I wish the NFL would people will see through is that when the NFL does things like things for symbolism but not substance, like play "Lift Every Voice and Sing" at games in the beginning of the year, or put these decals, justice, equality. But when in reality, if you look at the suites and the executive suites and the people that are making the decision, it doesn't add up to what they're trying to promote out there. So I think that Brian Flores, I applaud him because regardless, he still had a future in the NFL, but he had to know that by taking this step, he pretty much, it looks like, probably hurt his chances of ever getting a job in the NFL again because of this. So the fact that he, at 40 years old, still with an opportunity to coach at an assistant level or a head coach level in the league, to take this step, knowing that it could possibly cost his career, I'm sure he didn't take this lightly. So I don't think that he would have came out taking that chance if he couldn't back up what he said.
Well,
So
it's not what you know; it's what you can prove.
yeah, well, I tell you what, that text message,
Yeah.
yeah, that text message from Coach.
I'm not a lawyer, but how that I don't know. Those things are hard to prove. And I know a lot of people have fatigue about having these conversations centered on race. But I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, you look at what's happening in the NFL, and you ask yourself the question, why is this happening? Okay, because I believe that you can answer. In Six Sigma, there's a tool when you want to get to the root cause of a problem. It says you can ask the 5 whys. They say that if you ask the question why 5 times, by that 5th time you should be able to get to the to the root cause. And so I guess the way that I would approach this,
5 times.
if you ask if you ask why 5 times, by that 5th time you should be able to get to the root cause of what a problem is.
He black. He black. He black. He black.
Well, I mean, yeah, yeah.
Look. I know you said people got fatigue, right? People got fatigue. Imagine the fatigue we've had for some years.
No, but I'm just saying there are a lot of people.
Yeah, I know you said
there are a lot of people who are fatigued about having conversations and it being centered around race as a cause. But I get it, because look, even me, I get tired. I get tired of having conversations, or I get tired of seeing things, and but the thing is, the reality is that we live this. And it doesn't matter how much I close my eyes or don't watch the news or shy away from some of the provocative comments that people make to appeal to their base and things like that. I mean, we live
gaslighting.
Yeah. And the question is that when you look at around the NFL, and you have 27 teams, and you look at the majority of the people who are playing in the NFL, why don't we have more representation? And I would say this, why is that the issue, and what can we do? The Rooney Rule didn't do anything to improve that. And for people who don't know what the Rooney Rule is,
Nah,
basically,
that just
if there's the Rooney Rule in the NFL basically says that if there is a position open, that as a minimum you have to interview 2 minority candidates. That's what the Rooney Rule is. And I think that's been in how long has that been in effect? Maybe 15, 20 years? I don't know.
man, since the '90s. Because what happened was, I can't think of the other guy, but Johnny Cochran, the lawyer, OJ, Johnny, another lawyer, they were going to sue the NFL because of this,
Yeah.
and this is what came out of it. They say you have to consider 2 a minority, but what they were doing, they were just doing that to check off. They had no intention of hiring them.
Correct.
That's why, like when it came to the New York Giants thing with the text that Belichick sent him, he sent the congratulations to the wrong guy. He sent it before he even got the interview.
Yeah.
So the decision was already made. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, and everybody knows that's been the case.
Yeah.
Okay, just to save face or do this, we'll say we're going to interview you. But reality, we already have the guy. We just want to check off this box to appease whatever.
Yeah.
And what's happened is that a lot of mediocre coaches have gotten to the league when more qualified people never got a chance. Case in point, like who's the guy just didn't make it the season with Jacksonville? That coach.
Yeah.
Never coached his league. Never coached a pro game in his life.
Yeah.
Everybody was saying this guy don't take a chance on him. He this. Hire him when you got Leftwich and the enemy who have won Super Bowls, who have been to Super Bowls. But yeah, so it is what it is. So hey. Hey.
So so it's 7:30, man. We got to get into our topic, man. I told you it was a lot of stuff. It was a lot of stuff that was going on.
Well, one more thing. I think our cousin Tracy mentioned about the bomb threats at HBCUs.
Yeah.
I think Tracy. I think I read an article where they've kind of narrowed it down to some juveniles who were some little geniuses who are making those threats. A real sophisticated system to do it. So just wanted to So I think they've kind of found some young kids who use sophisticated ways not to be found to make those threats. I think that's the last I heard about it. I can look it up for you and inbox you the information. All right.
Hey, we got a message. I mean, what qualifies a head coach? I think, when you just look at the history and when you look at the numbers, as long as football, we've been playing NFL football. What qualifies to be a head coach is a white male. I mean, I don't know any other way. I don't know any other way to say it. I don't know. Yeah. You got any comments on that, Junior?
Well, let's see. 32 teams, one African American male.
Yeah.
I mean, what? Yeah. Potential. They'll sit there and let a coach. They'll sit there and let a coach have 3 losing seasons and give him another chance, right? Or have a horrible season, but they'll let your guy here who coached a team who hasn't had a winning season in 10 years, 3 winning seasons, let it go.
Yeah.
Just like the who was the coach of Tampa Bay, Tony Dungy.
Yeah.
Had a winning season, built that team up, built it up, had a winning season. They fired him. Bring Gruden in the next year. Gruden win the Super Bowl off a team talent that Tony Dungy built up and developed. And now you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, there it is right there.
I don't know. I think for me the question is what can we do about it, and the other question is, since we know what are we saying that there aren't any qualified African Americans to be a coach? I mean, again, you look at Brian Leftwich, who's he's the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Offensive coordinator led them to to the Super Bowl, and also now they didn't make it to the Super Bowl, but still to the playoffs. Brought in a new quarterback, and I would go on to say that when you look at it, most coaches either offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators. And so you look at the success that they've had in those positions. I think when you look at qualifications, I think that's a qualifier. But the question is, everybody doesn't get the same chance. That's the issue.
Yeah, and look at Brian Flores. He was a defensive coach on a team that won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So hey, we can. Yeah, so we know why it is. So
yeah.
Let's not tiptoe around it. We know why it is.
Yeah.
Just call it what it is.
Yeah.
That thing. Let's get into the look at 7:30. Let's get into while we can to be about discussion. Yeah.
Hey, Junior, go ahead and give people a rewind if they missed part one of the voting rights, and then we'll get into part two.
Yeah, man. Yeah, basically the first part we talked about the issues with voter suppression and the attempts by certain legislatures to suppress the vote and pass these measures. We went into the history of it. We went into how it started with how it all started with the Holder case, Shelby versus Holder.
Yeah.
When these states said that the Voting Rights Act was no longer valid because it's 40 years ago, and we don't need to do it no more because we've changed, right? So there's no need to enforce it anymore, have it on the books.
Yeah.
And in a 5-4 decision, the conservatives said, yes, let's strike down Section 5. See, the key thing is they didn't strike down the entire Voting Rights Act. They struck down Section 5, which means that any law that you pass, it has to be pre-cleared.
Yeah.
If you're in a state that had a history of voter suppression,
correct,
then whatever law that you pass has to be pre-cleared.
Yeah.
And so it kept these legislators honest about when they made change to voting laws. It kept them honest.
Correct.
Now that's not in place. You don't have to be honest.
Correct. And one of the states that was affected by, and this is, I knew a lot about Shelby versus Holder, but when I was doing some research, I found something that was really interesting. Shelby versus Holder was decided on what was it? Hold on, where is it at?
I think that was 2000.
No, I'm getting the date. Shelby versus Holder was decided on June the 25th of 2013. Okay.
Yep. There you go.
June 25th of 2013.
Okay.
The very next day. They do it big in Texas. I mean, look, shout out to Texas, man. Look, I gotta say, man, I lived in San Antonio, man, for 5 years, man. I love me some Texas, man. But I'm just gonna say, within 24 hours, they already had it. They already had the voter ID law. They already had the redistricting plans. They already had that drawn up, and it went into effect the very next day. And
they anticipated. They already anticipated.
They anticipated, and so, so I look at this and I say, why? Okay. 72 hours later, if they couldn't have done that because they would have had to submit it to the Department of Justice in order to make that change. Yeah. So 72 hours beforehand, it couldn't happen. Fast forward, it's ended, and now they have a voter ID law. Okay, and then on top of that, now you have to have certain types of voter IDs to be able to vote. And so what did Texas do? They went a step further. They started closing DMVs. Now,
where did they close DMVs?
They closed the DOVs. They did close some in a lot of rural areas, but typically, when you look at where they closed the DMVs, it was in primarily Hispanic and African American counties. That's where they closed them at. But then on top of that, so voter ID law, only certain types of voter IDs can't go to the DMV, or you can go to the DMV, but you have to go to a DMV that you don't, that's outside of your immediate area. And then since Shelby versus Holder had passed, they closed approximately 750 polling locations. And again, when you look at where those polling locations were closed, again, it was in primarily Hispanic and African American communities. And so the question is, why would they do that? I think there's something to be said about politics on both sides. They will do. I think that they play to their base and they do things for their advantage. Okay, I view this as different. This is different.
There's no equivalency here. There's no equivalency here
in so many ways. Go ahead, man.
Yeah.
And then also, I'm sorry. Right. Yeah. And then the last thing that they started doing is they started purging voters. So that means that if you miss an election cycle, they purge you from the voter rolls. And then oftentimes, in some cases, they didn't even notify the people that they had been purged. And so I don't know. That's what we call voter suppression. So when people want to ask the question, well, people can vote. I mean, that is true. People can vote. But this is classic voter suppression, because voter suppression doesn't mean that you can't vote. It just means that it makes it harder.
Yeah.
And this is what happened in Texas.
Yeah. Look. Let's look at North Carolina, right? The same thing. They waited maybe it wasn't the next day, but it was a couple of weeks, right? It was less than a month after that North Carolina passed their law.
Yeah.
And here's what they did, because here's the thing. It had to do, and let's call it what it is, it had to do with the election of Barack Obama, with the changing demographics and the election of an African American president. In North Carolina, here's what the Republican Party did, right?
Before you say that, can I say one thing? Say one thing? I want to In 2006, the bipartisan Senate, I think 98-2, they reaffirmed the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah.
In 2006. Exactly. Go ahead.
Yeah. And some of those same senators won't vote to get it back on point. Correct. Right? Exactly. But to your point, I really think this had to do with the election of an African American president. And here's what James, how can you say this? You just talking out here. But here's what North Carolina did. The Republican Party hired these people, do this data research. And you can go online and you can put my name in. You can go online and see everybody's voting history. It's public record. They went and looked at every single demographic that voted for Barack Obama. Every single demographic, right? With the young people. So the people that's 18, 19 that started off voting. Oh, I think I heard.
No, go ahead.
Or am I back?
Yeah.
Hold up. I froze. Okay, I froze for a second.
Yeah, you're back.
So what they did was, in their ID law, I'm back. Okay, good. I'm back. Good. So with the young people, what they did in North Carolina, if you're 17 years old and you're going to turn 18 before the next cycle, you can register to vote, right?
Yep.
They attempted to cut that out, right? With African Americans, they saw African American voting patterns. They saw that 70% of African Americans early voted. They saw that also a larger number voted on Sunday, which is sold to the polls, because it's a thing where African Americans on Sunday afternoons vote, right?
Yep.
So what they did was they cut early voting. They stopped same-day registration, because the African Americans tended to do that. They looked at the numbers, and they went and attacked every number. And the same thing, and also they purged people from the polls that didn't vote. Because, granted, a lot of first-time voters voted because a black man was voting for president. That's the only reason they voted, right?
Yeah.
So if they didn't vote in that next time or next cycle, they were purged from the polls. Me and Tanya, we did a voting registration thing with a group, a grassroots group here in Duplin County, and we were reaching out to people, and we got a list of the purge list.
Yep.
We contacted people, didn't even know they were purged from the voting polls. You see what I'm saying? And then the same thing about the vote, the ID closing DMVs and closing voter polls. But I tell you, Aunt, people say, well, it's nothing wrong with having an ID to vote. Here's my thing: if
I think you should have an ID to vote.
Yeah, say it again.
I believe that you should have some sort of ID to vote. I'm a proponent of voter IDs.
Well, let me say this. George Washington was the first president. From George Washington to George Herbert Walker Bush, the second Bush, nobody said anything about voter IDs.
Correct.
Nobody said it was an issue. Nobody was like, okay, we should have voter IDs. It didn't, right? And so my thing here is this here. You have the letter of the law and the spirit of the law.
Correct.
Reading the letter of it, oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with having voter ID. Right. But the spirit behind, the motivation behind passing the law and what goes along with it, that's where I have my issue with it.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I have an issue with it too. But
yeah,
if you're running a race and you have some obstacles that you have to run around, it sucks. But if one of those obstacles is something that's within your control, now if I had to get a voter ID and they closed the one here in Wayne County, voting is important to me. If I had to drive to Raleigh or if I had to drive to Charlotte to get an ID card, I'm going to do that. Okay, if it's a requirement and it's within your control to take care of, I think that you should take care of that. Because we can't do anything about whether or not they close whether or not they close it. We can't do anything about that. That can't be.
Here's the thing.
I don't want to say excuse, but that can't be. The answer can't be. You know what, Junior? We're talking about it on Facebook Live. Everybody's hearing that. Okay, what happens when the midterms are coming up in November? Early voting should start in October. The primaries is about to start within a few months. Okay. We knew the last election that voter ID was going to be an issue. So why, during that whole time period, why not make it a priority to make sure that you have your affairs in order so that you can get you can get some sort of ID that's required to vote?
Yeah, look, there's a difference between an excuse and a reason, right? And like I said, first of all, if you live in Wayne County, Duplin County, Craven County, Onslow County, these areas are pretty much don't have to worry about as far as in the red, right? So I don't think it's an issue per se here.
Yeah.
I think in places like where they're like closing the polls or DMVs in places like Greensboro and Raleigh and Charlotte.
Yeah.
And the thing about it, and here's the thing, it's voter suppression. Is right. You can. I think Beasley. I think the Supreme Court case, the last state Supreme Court race. I think it was decided by less than 200 votes.
Yeah.
The thing is that you can do it. It's not about stopping you. It's about if they can stop 3 here and 3 here that can't make that ride. That lady that's 90 years old that don't have a ride or can't drive all that way, or people that can't get off work. 2 or 3 here, 2 or 3 here. In these razor thin elections, that's where they're hoping to make the difference at.
No, trust me.
Yeah.
I get it, man. I get it. That's the idea is to make it harder and knock off. But again, I don't know what the answer is. I just know that when you look at what's happening in North Carolina, okay, the voter ID law, that has been struck down several times. Okay, it has been. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. And so I'm saying within the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, if it's important to you, then I think you will find a way. Okay? Because we're no longer, this ain't like it was Bloody Sunday where you're getting hit with batons, and that's not the case. I'm saying that if out of all the issues that's stopping you from voting, if a voter ID is one of those, and if it's a priority for you, I think there has been enough time for you to take care of that. Okay, I get, yeah.
That's I get that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true. And also, how about going to vote and have to wait in line 10 hours to vote?
Yeah.
And I know you would drive to Raleigh, right? But will you wait in line 10 hours?
Look, man, this is what I'll say. This is what I'll say. The last few times that I voted in Wayne County, man, it's taken me. I can count on two hands how many minutes it's taking me to vote, because it's really a seamless process here in Wayne County. I mean, so I'm very fortunate.
You know why? Because you live in an area in Wayne County where it's solid red. They're not going to attack where they're safe at. They're going to attack where they can't make up the difference. They're not going to suppress the vote. Yeah.
But if I had to wait, I'll wait. I mean, I think that's the thing. If I had to wait, look, I don't like it, but I don't know. I don't know, man.
Had a fraternity brother in Georgia. Now people that got to wait 10 hours. You can't even bring them a bottle of water. I mean, I get it, but like I said, it's the thing is, call it what it is. You're suppressing the minority vote. You don't like the change in demographics. You want to hold on to power with a death grip, and you're not even being pretentious about what you're doing.
Yeah,
they're not even trying to hide it. That's how bold it is.
Well,
and then they're trying.
It's always been bold. I mean, this hasn't changed. Yeah. Look, I think we agree with the intent. I mean, so we are in agreement when it comes to what we believe based on what the numbers are, based on where the locations are. We agree with what the intent is. Okay? I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying that typically we make room for what we consider our priorities in life in general. Okay? And I just believe that if voting is a priority for you, then you will make a priority to make sure that all your affairs are in order. Because again, what can you control? You can control that.
Yeah.
It sucks. I get it. It sucks. I mean, don't get me wrong. It sucks.
That's true.
It sucks.
That's true. It sucks. Yeah. But the thing is, you can call it out. You can protest against. You can do what you want to do.
Yeah.
But like I said, that 10 hour wait in line, and they're closing polls in minority areas.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that we're there, but to your point, America's always been there. The only difference is that since we know America, not America, but certain elements in America, that's why Section 5 was put in there. Just like what happened in the Reconstruction, when the police went away, when the troops left, they were killing and shooting African Americans in the street.
Yeah,
they took them off the voting polls right away.
Yeah.
So history tells us that whenever there are laws in place that keep these white supremacist tendencies down, right, or at check, then things do well. It almost seems like when African Americans or minorities start to progress, like put a black person in, it's like there's a white supremacist default that they go back to the old ways. They default back. And I think after Reconstruction, default back. Civil rights movement, Section 5 in. Election of Barack Obama, default back. if you look at history, it's always these cycles of progress, default back, and it's always the judges and whatever that makes that key decision that defaults it back. You know, Plessy versus Ferguson, default back. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree, but I guess there are some people who play the long game. I think there are some people who play the long game, and I would tell you
Yeah.
when you and when I say Democrats, and I'm just talking about all Democrats. I'm not whoever is affiliated with a Democrat. When you look at how do we get here? Okay. In 2008, and when you want to look at what the precursor was to everything that's going on now,
Yeah.
how did we get here? We got here when you look at what happened with Barack Obama being elected. Okay, more Democrats showed out than ever voted before. More Black Americans showed out than ever been voted before. And then you look what happened when you look what happened in the midterm elections.
They didn't show up.
They didn't show up, and that's when all those state legislations flipped, and that's when all those redistricting rules, because they had the majority in the state house, and that's when all those rules changed. So that's why I say you can have tunnel vision or you can play the long game, because the people who are trying to, in bad faith, the people who are trying to still continue with voter suppression, they've been playing this long game forever. We just lose focus sometimes.
Yeah, I mentioned that. I told people just when school segregation ended in 1954, those people who were against integration, they never stopped.
Yeah.
Right? The people that did not feel that African Americans should have the right to vote, they never stopped.
Yeah.
They waited. They got a judge here, a judge there, a judge here, a judge there. And finally, they get together and the people who are against abortion, they never stop. They play the long game until they get what they want. So yeah, what you say is 100% sure.
Yeah.
True. I mean, look, like I said, I knew when Barack Obama was elected president, I saw it coming, because I've studied American history in depth enough to know those pendulum shifts, right? I didn't think it would shift as far as Trump, right? But I've seen the pendulum shifts back and forth, and that's how it goes. And I've seen enough when equity, equality, when it seems like it's going that way, there's a default switch that knocks us back 20, 30 years. And what we're seeing now is that it's almost like it was back in the day. It used to be when people had to hide or not really voice what they really think for fear of loss of job or loss of whatever. But you have people who are going flowing out, not even hiding or being pretentious about it. They're not even trying to dog whistle. They're just straight bullhorning. So that's where we are. So the question is, what do we do and how do we address it? You know.
Well, I can tell you that one of the things that I've been very deliberate about, especially in the new year, is to protect my peace. And I would tell you,
Yeah.
I can't look, man. We can't save the world, and if we think we can save the world, we are kidding ourselves. I say that you focus on your community. Okay, I talked about Texas today only because this is one of the prime examples of what's happening with voting rights. But I can't control what happens in Georgia. I can't control what happens anywhere else. The only thing that I can control is what happens in my household, what happens in my community, and what happens in my state. And so that's what I'm focused on. That's where my area of concern is. Local elections.
Yeah.
And I may even run for office.
Yeah. Well, look, I tell you, look, politics. Oh, I hear you.
Yeah.
Look, politics is local, man. I go to all my town hall meetings, and I sit down in those meetings, and they say, well, people always say, James, you should run for office and that stuff like that. And I would love to run for office, but when I go to my town hall meetings, really, they're doing a good job, man. I have no complaints. I mean, they may have different political ideologies as far as Democrat, Republican, whatever, but on the local level, that really doesn't come into play too much. I just see what they're making, so I'm like, I have no complaints. And but I see what you're saying. I'm active. I'm on the zoning board. I try to be active. I try to get people engaged, but I am concerned broader about the direction of the country when it comes to these things, as far as voter suppression, income inequality, the deteriorating situation with schools, the gap between the haves and have-nots, because at some point that's going to directly impact me and mine, right, on some level. So I am concerned about those things. I'm concerned about policies on a national level that deals with issues of addressing those type of issues, as far as, like I said, inequities and education, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Politics is local, but I do have concerns on the national level that that are pressing, that does filter down to me on the local.
Yeah. No, yeah, I have those. Yeah, I definitely have those concerns too. But you drive yourself crazy. I mean, that's the reality, man. You would drive yourself crazy when you look at all the things that are going on. And I'm just saying, you have to protect your peace. Don't get high blood pressure, and just focus on what you can focus on. And more important, the other thing I want to say, I think I'm fortunate. Me and my family, we are fortunate because we don't have those obstacles here. But what I will say is, and I still care, but the people who are impacted they have to care more than we do. The people who are impacted,
they do because they wait in line for 10 damn hours. So they care. They care.
I'm talking about at large. I'm just talking about
at large. I got you.
Yeah. Because the same conversation. Look, man, I was James Baldwin, The Fire Next Time. Okay, look,
come on, man.
But what I'm saying is that the same thing that James Baldwin was talking about back then are the same conversations that we're having now. But what I mean is, it's okay for us to have these conversations, but I think action has to precede these conversations.
Yeah.
And you got to be willing to put in the work.
Yeah. Put as I say, put some skin in the game.
Yeah.
But the thing about me, I'm that point now. Look, I'm here for all the smoke. I'm here for all the smoke. So it's like as far as issues and things of that nature on the local level or injustice, whatever. It's not too much I'm gonna back down from. Just my makeup,
No,
but I get it. Yeah,
is that Smith blood? Is that Smith blood in us? But I'm just saying, there's a I'm a segue into this right here, but I'm gonna say there is a cap on how much I care. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a cap. Yeah, there's a cap. Yeah, I got you.
You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. There's a cap on how much I care about issues, and I'm just saying, for my mental health, and I'm going to segue on this mental health with the young lady that just killed herself, that committed suicide. Oh, yeah. You definitely have to. I think you definitely have to be cognizant of what you are allowing into your circle.
Oh yeah.
And if you don't, because it's easy to think that the whole world is falling apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is easy to think that, and that's why I say, for me, I am a much happier person as a January, when I said I'm going to make a concerted effort to put a cap on how much I care about things. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not gonna. It doesn't mean that I'm not gonna have those conversations. It just means that for my mental health and the ability to also to be able to still have good relationships and not ruin relationships with the people that I care about, I have to watch out for my mental health.
Yeah. Oh, totally get it, man.
Yeah.
Totally get it. Yeah, I mean, it's focus on things that are important.
Yeah. That you can
Um,
control.
going to my grandson basketball game.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Morgan, she just got her graduation date from Chapel Hill, May 7th. So we
Mm-hmm.
are making plans for her graduation in May. Those type of things that bring peace.
Yeah.
Keeping that promise, making sure all my kids,
Yeah.
like Daddy said, make sure all your kids get an
Yeah.
education. So those type of things that give you fulfillment, the things that you've worked and put time in. Um, but like I said, I've always had a heart for the downtrodden. I've always had a heart
Yeah.
for the people on the bottom, and always had a knack to fight for those people in whatever setting I've always been in.
Yeah.
Um, it gives me less peace to do nothing, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, like I said, yeah, the everybody process is different. No process is right or wrong.
Right.
Every process is different. But like you said before, whatever my process is, it'll never have me going on top of a building,
Yeah.
jumping off.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know where to find my peace and stability. Um, but yeah, yeah, but I get it, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
we
And
that Smith blood is this. That Smith blood.
but then also
And
you have to
people don't
put it.
understand what that means when we say that Smith blood.
Yeah. But that's also something that we need to put in context. I mean, because there is a lot of good that's happening in this
Yeah,
in this country. So it's not it's and you know
yeah, yeah.
that's
Oh
the
yeah,
thing.
oh yeah,
You know, when you look at some of the other
yeah.
things that other countries are having to, because I would rather be in Wayne County right now than Ukraine.
Oh yeah, no doubt,
You
no
know, so
doubt, no
that's
doubt,
why
no
we
doubt.
have to. I think context matters, and sometimes we have to sprinkle some of the good
Yeah,
with some of the what we assume is bad also.
yeah. I'd rather be trying to buy a house in Beetleville than trying to buy a house in Raleigh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I really,
yeah. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. But I get it. It's more things that make us smile than make us frown. And I think I think there are people, politicians who benefit on keeping everybody angry, uptight,
correct.
putting things out there to get people in that constant mode. And they don't know that they are triggering unstable people that's going out and doing heinous things. But I live in a rural area that voted overwhelmingly that voted for Trump. I live in a red area, red district Republicans. But when I go outside my door, when I interact with my neighbors, when I interact with people at the gas station, for the most part, there's no negativity. It's all
Yeah,
positivity. So I don't see that. I understand the game that people benefit and try to keep everybody divided. They don't want me talking to my neighbor. They don't want me talking to my Hispanic or my friend, or they want us, or my conservative friends or my
hmm,
liberal friends. They want us to down his throat. But if we sit down and have a conversation, we'll see we're having the same conversations. How did your grandson do at the basketball game? How your
correct,
child doing in college? What do you do to get them weeds out your grass?
correct.
As I asked one of my neighbors, these are the things that go on daily,
Yeah,
and that's what we need to focus on.
yeah,
But that being said, if when we have conversations, I do understand the dynamics of me being an African American in this society, and if I'm not going to allow you to be comfortable with having stances that that cause detriment to me or people that look like me, I mean, I'm going to challenge that. So, um, and if that makes us not friends, then that's fine. Like everybody that knows me, and probably you, it's no secret where I stand on things,
hmm,
right? And all of my friends understand that, and so there's a mutual respect there. We agree to disagree, but yes, if you take a stance that I think is disrespectful or you may not understand fully, yes, I'm going to educate you. And if you continue to take that stance, then maybe we're not friends anyway.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I think that's fair. I mean,
yeah,
I think that's fair. I just say I make room for there's a difference between the political class uh, and everyday
yeah,
regular folk. I mean, I like hanging out with
yeah.
I like being with regular folk, man. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, your experiences shape you, regardless of whether you
Yeah.
grew up in the suburbs, whether you grew up in a trailer park, whether you live in the projects, grew up in the projects.
Yeah.
Your experiences shape the way that you view the world. But what I would say is, do you have the ability to be able to change your opinion if you're presented with new facts? And luckily for me, I have a lot of people in my life that I think fit that mold.
Yeah.
So I want to. What else we got? Anything else that's going on before we
Um,
before we end it? Anything else going on?
not much, man. Not much. I think the Supreme. I think by the time we speak next, I think they might have a Supreme Court pick already. So we might have to delve into that. I'm not for sure.
Yeah. Also, when you mentioned the Supreme Court, two cases. The Supreme Court took up the affirmative action case, and then they also took up the abortion case. So I'm not sure it's going to be
Yeah,
out in
no,
this
no,
session, but this is going to
yeah.
be, this is going to be, it's going to be interesting.
Like I say, are they gonna get rid of preferences when it comes to race, or they're gonna take out the legacies and take out the parent donors,
Yeah.
or just the one with race? Because what happens is, uh, when you start doing that, you see the direction North Carolina UNC is going in with the board of trustees and everything like
Mm-hmm.
that. When they take these things away, that's going to cause effect. You're going to look at the numbers; it's going to drop. But guess what? Um,
We'll see if it
if
drops.
it, we'll see.
I'm
But like I
not. I
say,
mean, yeah,
HBCUs be like this. Come
yeah,
on, come on, we'll take
yeah,
it. Yeah, come on.
yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. Because the reality is, you just don't know. I mean, how do you look at somebody and say, you know what, you got in because of affirmative action? You don't
Yeah, you
know.
don't
It's
know.
conjecture at best.
People assume. And
Yeah,
here's the thing: the fact that people say that means they don't understand the
correct.
law. Go and read what affirmative action really is.
Yeah,
Because a lot of times the people that get in because of purposes, they would have got in anyway.
yeah,
A lot of times.
yeah,
And also at HBCUs, white students get in because they're free to get scholarships because they're considered minorities.
yeah,
So it's the same thing at HBCUs.
yeah,
White people benefit from affirmative action as well when they go to HBCUs.
yeah.
So I bet a lot of people didn't know that.
Yeah.
So
I'm just gonna put the Heisman up for all the doom and gloom. I'll wait. First of
yeah.
all, I'll wait and see what happens.
Yeah. Well. Like I said, when they struck down Section 5 of the voting rights, we saw what happened, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Last thing, since we're talking about HBCUs, I don't know if people know that there have been several bomb threats. Did we talk about that already? Bomb threats.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Tracy asked about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
HBCUs.
Yeah.
Our cousin. And I saw an article where the FBI and officials have narrowed it down to a set of juveniles who are very tech savvy,
Yeah.
who have been doing that, who'll be able to do it and do it without being traced.
Yeah.
So they last I checked, they got some juveniles.
Yeah.
So so
Hey,
these
before we
kids,
go,
man,
man,
these
I
kids.
gotta tell a story, man. My daughter Camille, man, bless her heart. So my daughter Camille, she's a freshman at Amherst College in Amherst, Massachusetts, and so
Yeah.
she decided that she wanted to get a job working at Whole Foods. You know, so um, she has a bike, and look, first of all, she makes $15 an hour at Whole Foods in Amherst, Massachusetts. Junior, guess how much they make on Sundays?
How much?
They double it. So on Sundays, she makes $30 an hour.
What? What?
I cannot
What?
believe it. I cannot believe it. She said, "Yeah, there's a policy that I have on Thursday on Sundays that they make $30 an hour." But anyway, this is what happened. She was riding her bike in the snow or whatever, and so she crashed her bike. Okay, and tell me why third degree weather. She walked 3 miles. She walked 3 miles to Whole Foods, man, and she sent me
Was
these
on a
pictures.
Sunday?
I don't know if it was on a Sunday, but she took the pictures, and I was just like, she was like, well, I enjoyed the scenery. I'm gonna have to post those pictures, but those were some beautiful pictures in the snow with the sunset. It was interesting. But she walked three
And she
miles in
walked
30
three
degree
miles.
weather.
Well, if I was getting $30 an hour, I might want that $3 too.
Yeah. So bless her heart. Shout out to Camille. All right.
All right.
Last thing before we go, if you're watching, if you or someone you know that is not registered to vote, there are a lot of ways that you can do it. In North Carolina, all you have to do is go to type in "Am I registered to vote" in North Carolina, and it's going to pop up to the website. Make sure that you are registered. If you are not registered, take care of it now. And I'm pretty sure that in most states, it's the same thing. Am I registered to vote in this state? You have time. Make sure that because you could have been purged from the voter rolls and you don't even know it yet, and you show up and you can't vote. So that's the call to action. Take action. All right?
All right.
You got anything, Junior?
Oh, that's it, man. That's it.
All right. Hey, thanks for watching. We out.
All right. Peace.
All right.
All right.